Hey everybody, it's your boy Mattie here with Altcoin Buzz. We're looking at a bunch of stories today. The CBOE has filed formal applications with the SEC to launch a Bitcoin ETF. That's pretty good news if it were to happen. It's not the first time they've applied, but this one potentially, may be the one. Let's see, third time's a charm, hopefully. You have Yahoo Finance, which is talking in very bullish terms about $100 million Bitcoin by the year 2030. We'll look a little bit closer into that. We have a bit of a study that we're looking at. So from the Financial Post up here in Canada, 500,000 Ontarians own cryptocurrency, says securities regulator, but many don't understand the risk. And this is related to, you have a formal study out of the Bank of Canada regarding Bitcoin awareness and adoption in Canada. We're going to take a very brief look at that. We also have updates from Robinhood, and they're saying that you can now buy Litecoin and Bitcoin Cash on Robinhood crypto. So that's good news as well. We'll take a look at all those stories. But we're beginning, as always, on altcoinbuzz.io with this article by Licia about John McAfee. McAfee is back and has a lot to say, as usual. Yes, of course. So look, guys, we know that there are some people that are not too fond of McAfee out there in the Altcoin Buzz army. That's fine. I think my appreciation of him is waning as well, if I'm going to be perfectly honest. So I'll intro the article and then I'll let you guys peruse it at your own leisure. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but John McAfee, a crypto celebrity, quote unquote, right? Former CEO of MGT Capital and president of the United States candidate, is back. A couple of weeks ago, he recovered from a spike, something that he ingested. In other words, an ostensibly intentional poisoning. Restated that he is a free man and slammed the Reserve Bank of India, as well as Tom Lee, co-founder of Fundstrat Global Advisors. I think on that last point, he was just unhappy with the fact that Tom Lee has kept reshuffling and recalibrating his models and his predictions. Like John McAfee, though, Tom Lee has been very wrong in some of the calls that he's made. Remember that Tom Lee put out that suggestion that Bitcoin would gain 70% in value following Consensus Week in New York. Pretty much went the other way. Not 70% the other way, but still. So you guys can read more about this, John McAfee's exploits and what he's up to. An interesting cat in the crypto game, no doubt, but he's kind of polarizing. So let's move ahead, I think, to the big news of the day. Check out all the acronyms in this title. So CBOE Files with SEC for Bitcoin ETF. Translation: Chicago Board Options Exchange files with the Security and Exchange Commission for Bitcoin Exchange Traded Fund. Now, this is a really big deal. If this were to be approved successfully, it could really be a game changer in the way that cryptocurrencies are bought, in the way that they're dealt with on Wall Street for not only the professional investors and investment firms, but casual investors too. So reading on, the United States Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, is examining an application from the Chicago Board Options Exchange Global Markets, which, if approved, could grant the company a coveted Bitcoin ETF license and bring new waves of institutional investors into the Bitcoin arena. Reading ahead, the application is the trust's third attempt to garner any such license. The first two attempts were rejected in early 2017, upon which the SEC released the following statement. Quote, based on the record before it, the Commission believes that the significant markets for Bitcoin are unregulated. Therefore, the Commission Act does not find the proposed rule changed to be consistent with the Exchange Act. So you got to, rewind back to early 2017. That's when the CBOE initially filed two applications for a Bitcoin ETF. Quite a lot has happened since early 2017. Even, at let's say the peak of hysteria and investment and, I guess FOMO as well, that was late 2017. But early 2017, there was so much less exposure in terms of just the common investor, the common individual off the street. There's many more people now that are aware about cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, that are active investors. I think this time around, there's a very big difference from early 2017. That feels like 2017 rather. That feels like over a decade ago as far as the crypto world is concerned. So this would be a really big deal because it could very much facilitate with a lot of ease the entry as an on-ramp into the market for a lot of people that and institutions that would not otherwise be necessarily involved in this. So an exchange-traded fund would be fantastic. I don't think this is the kind of thing that would affect Bitcoin in a potentially negative way as some of the futures did, arguably as they did, right? However, if you feel differently, let us know in the comments below. This is the application you can read about here from CBOE to the Securities and Exchange Commission. My understanding, guys, is that the SEC will come out with a decision or at least more information, but most likely a decision on August 10th, 2018. So do be sure to keep an eye out on any statements, any press releases that they issue on August 10th, 2018. They should be issuing a decision as to whether or not an ETF will be approved for the CBOE. So that's going to be very interesting to keep an eye on. And this is somewhat related, not really, but check this out. Yahoo Finance is definitely bullish, and I guess they're hodling because check out this article. Bitcoin to be worth $100 million per coin by 2030. So question mark. It's obviously not the most serious publication here in the world. But here's the idea. Bitcoin is on its way to world dominion, and any currency that stands in its way will experience demonetization or hyper-Bitcoinization. Those are the sentiments held by leading cryptocurrency philosopher Daniel Kraus, who believes the cryptocurrency will be worth $100 million by the year 2030. So how's this possible? Hyper-Bitcoinization is a state in which Bitcoin is expected to become the world's dominant form of money. The fact that the digital currency is socially wired should work to its advantage when it comes to exponential adoption. So you have central bank machinations, which should end as more people join the cryptocurrency bandwagon. I agree. Kraus expects Bitcoin to reframe citizens' roles in a borderless global economy. The virtual currency should become the world's first universal currency, in part because of voluntary social drivers and its inherent social drivers. And I mean, this all hinges on the idea that people want to be in control of their own money, that they want to be accountable, that they feel a sense of agency when it comes to their personal finances. And perhaps that's changing, increasingly so. It's becoming more and more popular. According to Mr. Kraus, no currency has what it takes to stand in the way of Bitcoin world dominion given the expected mass adoption. Any currency that tries to stand in the way should lose value as Bitcoin supplants it. So this is an interesting point here. The cost of rejecting Bitcoin should exceed the cost of adopting it as more people start to use the cryptocurrency. That bears repeating. The cost of rejecting Bitcoin should exceed the cost of adopting it as more people start to use the cryptocurrency. I agree with that. And to the extent that this can't be misconstrued for FOMO, I mean, if you take it in a gradual sense over the years, I think the incentive is there, assuming adoption proceeds, assuming that people get more and more interested in it, assuming that the use cases continue to increase. I agree. I think the cost of rejecting Bitcoin would exceed the cost of adopting it. The digital currency is expected to begin assuming money's traditional roles, helped by widespread adoption and acceptance. Institutional and government support should go a long way in accelerating adoption of the cryptocurrency in a mainstream sector, a feat expected to strengthen its value. Okay, so where does this $100 million valuation come from? Here's a bit of the math. Something like 20% of Bitcoin's total supply will be missing or lost in the future, which means that there's never really going to be 21 million circulating coins, right, that are out there being used actively. The number is going to be closer to 16.8 million, assuming that 20% figure that's been lost. So dividing the global value of money, which I guess can be argued a little bit, but here you have it at $1.8 quadrillion. So you divide 1.8 quadrillion by the 16.8 million Bitcoins that will be in circulation eventually. That comes to $107 million. Ta-da! So very simple. So this is really an extreme case. This is assuming that all the wealth, basically all the wealth in the world, that's not only monetary supply, that's bond markets, that's stock markets, that's derivatives markets, as is my understanding. If you take everything and you convert that into Bitcoin, then you're going to have $1.8 quadrillion worth of Bitcoin across about 17 million of them. That's where you get your $100 million Bitcoin. Is that reasonable? I don't think so. But obviously this guy, I think, is conducting a little bit of a thought experiment. And it's interesting to think about that kind of thing. What if Bitcoin over, the course of a couple of decades does give a lot of currencies a run for their money? Look what's happening in Zimbabwe, guys. Look what's happening in Venezuela. I mean, you already have case studies where you can point to for some of this stuff, at least on a small scale. So if you're interested in this kind of stuff, again, he's a bit of a philosophical economist, I guess, or economic philosopher, however you want to frame it. Daniel Krawitz, we're going to link to his Twitter account here, and he's got some interesting points of view, that's for sure. In a study out of the Financial Post in Canada, you have 500,000 Ontarians own cryptocurrency, says securities regulator, but many don't understand it. So an interesting case study here out of the province of Ontario in Canada. A friend actually on Facebook turned me on to this study, and I find it... It almost paints a bit of a negative picture, right? Because it's suggesting that you have about 4%, so the population of Ontario is about 14 million. So you have about 3 to 5% of that population that is interested in Bitcoin, that owns cryptocurrency, but they really don't know anything about it as far as the cryptography behind it, as far as how it's used or the technical aspects of it. And at face value, that sounds like a negative statistic. However, how many people understand the derivatives in their portfolio, or how many people understand the underlying assets that make up their 401k? I don't know if people necessarily have financial understanding of some of their other products and instruments that work behind the scenes, but so in that sense, I don't know if you can necessarily frame this as a negative, but it's interesting. So about just under 5% of Ontarians own cryptocurrency. It's one of the more progressive markets in the world, if I could say that. And that relates to this article, or this report, I should say, out of the Bank of Canada. And it seems like more and more people are familiar with cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, and more people are adopting it. So this is a nice 24-page report, not too heavy, not too technical. But basically, it's saying that ownership in Canada has gone up from about 2.9% to 5% over the course of the last year, and awareness at some level, level of being conversant in cryptocurrency, or having heard of it, or having heard some news reports or press releases about crypto. That number of Canadians has now gone up to 85% that say they're familiar with cryptocurrency. And that has actually almost doubled since last year. So we're not quite at the level of Turkey, which we looked at in the ING report from last week. Turkey's really ahead of the curve, and they're very, very progressive in terms of both their adoption and their knowledge about cryptocurrency. But we Canadians are getting there. We're working our way up. And I think if the trend continues, more and more interest is going to grow in an organic sense. So let us know your thoughts, guys. Maybe if you are a Canadian out there in the Altcoin Buzz Army, and you either agree or disagree with this study that was conducted by the Bank of Canada. Would love to hear your thoughts on this issue. And again, hopefully we're going to see the trend increase. So let us know what you think. In other quick news, guys, just a nice update on Robinhood. So you can now rather buy and sell Litecoin and Bitcoin Cash on Robinhood Crypto. It's commission free. If you haven't already checked out Robinhood, assuming that you can use it in the part of the world where you live, do check it out. So this is big news if you're a user of it, and I think it's going to help the platform grow further. You can take a look here. Currently, it's available in 17 states. I imagine that's going to expand as far as their product offering in the very near future. This is very much a growing service, and people seem to be very happy with it. If you're a user, if it's something that you are a fan of, or perhaps not, let us know in the comments below what you think about this. But either way, positive news. Charlie Lee's very happy. Boom! Thank you, Robinhood app, for supporting Litecoin. With that, guys, we're going to round it out. That's about all the major news for today. And I think the most important story there was definitely the Bitcoin ETF, the application by the CBOE toward the SEC for an ETF license or a status. I'm not sure about the exact terminology, but for updates on that kind of story and other stories, do be sure you're following Altcoin Buzz News, because we're going to alert you to the latest goings on in the crypto space. We'd love to hear your thoughts, guys, on the issues that we discussed today. If you like this video, do be sure to leave it a thumbs up, leave it a like. Make sure you're notified too, because we have new content every day. You know the drill by now, but stay notified, click the bell. We have new videos coming out all the time. We will see you again in one such new video soon. For everyone out there in the Altcoin Buzz Army, ladies and gentlemen, I wish you happy investing if you choose to invest. We will speak to you again soon. Have a great day.